Hello everybody. Today we are talking about tension in chess, and should we keep the tension or should we break it, and when and why? I've witnessed as a coach so many times. This is one of the most difficult things to fix for adult improvers. Whenever there's tension that is going on here, for example, it's black to move here, folks. What should black do? Whenever there's a tension going on, they have this tendency, they have this urge to clarify the situation by releasing the tension as soon as possible. But usually that's a wrong strategy. And in this session, we will discuss why that's the case. And I will give you very actionable tips of you understanding when it's the right time to break or keep the tension on the board. Black to play here, folks. And if you pay close attention, despite black being a piece down, black has a huge advantage because of this pin on the knight on f3. The white king is not safe. Black is having tremendous pressure on that knight on f3, which is tying down the white pieces. The rook on e3, the queen on d1 cannot move. Any move here almost wins for black, any reasonable move. For example, rook d8 wins with the idea of queen f4. Queen f4 directly also wins, by the way, putting more pressure on that knight. Queen f6 also wins for black. f5 also wins with the idea of f4 to chase away that rook and crash through on f3. What else? a6, b5 also wins, folks. Any move, any reasonable move that keeps the tension wins for black. But in the actual game, can you guess the chess crime which happened? Black took the knight, black took the pinned rook, and suddenly it was white who was slightly better because white is 2 minors for a rook. Incredible. So by releasing the tension prematurely, black has helped the white pieces, right? So this is a textbook example of a chess crime that black maybe found it too complex situation. He wanted to clarify ASAP, clarify the board. You know, I'm having rook versus 2 minors ASAP, and that was the cause of his mistake. So lesson is that whenever you're, for example, pinning the enemy piece like that, whenever the enemy pieces cannot move, they are expecting you to take ASAP. It's usually a good policy of not release the tension, right? One more example, typical, around 1000chess.com rapid players, even more so, they have huge problem of exchanging of blindly. Whenever there's an exchange opportunity, they tend to exchange pieces. Exchanges are very blind, and one reason is that because they cannot live with that tension, even for a single move. It's very difficult for those people to keep the tension even for one move or two moves on the board. For example, here, if black castle short, black is having a beautiful game. Why? Because look at white pieces on the queen side. They are buried. Black, in the actual game, just takes the pinned knight on d4. An amazingly beautiful chess crime on the board. This bishop is a beautiful piece. This knight is pinned, and black is taking this knight for no reason. Probably he's thinking that it's good to give the opponent double pawns. Well, the problem is that now, as a result of this capture, this buried knight has a beautiful square on c3, and this knight on d7 became buried, plus white will go d3 on the next move, thus getting rid of the double pawns. Incredibly beautiful mistake, right? Just, again, it's a norm and not an exception. Around 1000chess.com, it happens all the time. So exchanges and tension, people are having a hard time maintaining the tension. Here I can explain this move to you beautifully. You can always take that knight later. Why don't you improve your position, get a rook on e8 and take it further? Enjoy the white pieces which are buried on the queen side. Another very typical issue with tension, folks, pawn tension. In this session we will talk about pawn tension and how we can arrange it. When should we break the tension and when should we keep it? That's the key question. It's a very typical Philidor pawn structure. And again, in amateur levels, people take these pawns without thinking. And look what happens. It's a huge mistake because by taking on e5, white is only helping that bishop on f8. Plus, white is exchanging a central pawn for a backward pawn on d6. Look at this. Again, I can explain this move to you. Why this is a mistake, right? In this case, maintaining the pawn tension with knight f3 and putting more pressure on the pawn was clearly the best, but amateurs have hard times in keeping the pawn tension, even for a single move. You must have seen this yourself, folks. They make a pawn move, there's a contact, people want to clarify ASAP. They either take or they push in such cases. It's such a common beginner mistake, and that's the reason, that's a function of this video, folks. I want to change your perception with this video. Okay, knight f3. White should never break the tension. Because why? Because if black takes on d4 right now, which is a mistake, it only helps the white pieces, right? The knight is improved and black has left himself with a backward pawn on d6, and black gave up a central pawn on e5. Again, I can explain this move to you, why this is a mistake, by using chess principles, right? It's ultimately about pieces, and also in this case the structure. It's a central collapse for black. That's why in this case bishop e7 is the correct move. Black keeps the tension for a long time, and that's a very common pawn structure and dynamics in the field or defense. Talking about tension and pieces, my question is this, folks: is c takes d4 a good move for black in this position? Please verbalize. Please give me the reason why this move is good or bad for black in this position. This one is not good at all, folks, because by taking on d4 prematurely, you're only helping that bishop on c1, which was a bad piece, right? Again, going back, this bishop is a terrible piece on c1 because white already pushed the pawn to e3, right? But when you take on d4 for no reason, this bishop becomes a happy camper, and you gave this e-file pressure for the white pieces as well, right? Going back, I want you to form this connection between tension, pawns, and pieces. This is when you should ask yourself this question: by taking on d4, by releasing the tension, am I helping any of the enemy pieces, and am I helping one of my own pieces? It's not so clear which black piece gets happier as a result, but I can tell you exactly which white pieces got happier as a result of c takes d4. Keep that rules of thumb in the back of your head, and that you will reduce your chances of going wrong with the tension on the board, folks. A beautiful game of FM Geller. My question, folks, to you is this: should white release the tension with f takes e5, or should white keep it on the board? Please stop the video, ask yourself the same question as before, and I'm sure we'll get the right answer. Folks, f takes e5 is not good. Why? Because you're only helping the black pieces. Suddenly you're giving this beautiful e5 outpost to black for no reason. Look at this. Those knights are tied down. They're expecting you to take on e5, and that will activate those knights on e5. You can never chase away that piece from e5 if you take. Thus, white should maintain the tension, because white is much better development, beautiful pieces, right? Beautiful central control. And look at black's pieces. A couple of them are buried on the queen side. Thus, the best one for white is, can you guess it? Yes, rook f1. It's a beautiful move that maintains the tension in the center, and white gets ready at some point to take on f5 and activate the rook on f1, right? This rook was sleeping. Geller activates the final piece and gets ready for at some moment to break the tension. And that's the key. That's how strong players play chess, folks. They negotiate these trade-offs. Is it good for me to take it right now? No, because it only helps the black pieces. Thus, I will improve my position and I will keep the pressure on my opponent, right? So he has to be on the back foot. Maybe white will take on the next move, maybe two moves later, and black is already in trouble. Going back, rotate the board, folks. Should black take on f4 in this position, or should black play rook e8 in this position? You tell me. What is the correct move? Rook e8 or e takes f4? Rook e8 is correct, folks. The same for black. Black is always waiting for white to take on e5 and get a knight on e5. In the actual game, he took on f4. This was a bad move because as a result, right, white of course recaptured with the pawn and denies that beautiful outpost to the black knights. And white also maintains this beautiful pawn center. Look at those pawns controlling the center of the board. That's exactly why e takes f4 was wrong for black, because no black piece gets happy as a result, but white intensifies the central control. Black also exchanges off a very important central pawn for the pawn on g3 as a result. I can explain why this move is bad for black. Another very instructive position, folks. Black's last move was h5 and white has just gone h3. My question is, should black take on g4 or should black maintain the tension with rook h8 in this position? Again, you must ask yourself the same question. Which of my pieces get happier if I take, And am I making any of the enemy pieces happier if I take on g4? And then you will get the right answer. Folks, congratulations. If you say rook h8, that's a correct move. Black maintains the tension, and maybe black will double up on the h file, and at some point will take on g4 and go for an attack against the white king. If you take on g4 prematurely, that's wrong. Why? Because rotating the board. How should white recapture, folks? This way or this way? You tell me. Of course, f takes g4 is the best, because this knight, which was a terrible piece on d2, look how terrible that knight is. Suddenly that knight will become a hero on f3. You're only helping the white pieces. That knight will establish a beautiful square on e5, defend all these pawns, and even jumps with knight g5, for example, here, right? If you go rook h8, he can say, you know what, I won't even need to defend that pawn. I can do this, and if you take my pawn, comes the fork. Look at this, right? That's a beautiful, beautiful position, folks. Strategic puzzle for you, right? H takes g4 after h3. H takes g4 only helps that white knight, which was a terrible piece on d2. Again, one reason why I'm showing you these positions, folks, also to make it more, I want to stress more how important pieces are in chess. And when you evaluate a position, you have to look at the piece activity and restriction. That knight is just terrible. He's just begging for you, right? That knight is begging for black to release the tension instantly, so the knight can achieve that beautiful square on f3. And you're only helping the knight if you take it too early. Is it always bad to release the tension then, folks? No, that's not the case. And that's why I will show you a couple of positions as well today to highlight when it's a good time to release the tension. Well, the short story is this. If you gain a positional or tactical advantage, then you should release the tension. It makes sense, right? If one of your pieces becomes a hero, for example, if you destroy the enemy pawn center, if you go for a mating attack, then usually, right, you should break the tension. But you should have something concrete, some concrete advantage that you can foresee as a result of that tension release. That's the story. In this position, look at those beautiful pawns for white, right? And by keeping the tension between these pawns, white is actually stopping black from achieving any of these pawn breaks. That's the final advantage of maintaining the pawn tension, central pawn tension in those pawn structures. So, do you think it's a good thing for white to push e4, e5 in this position, folks? No, it's not good. e4, e5 is only helping black. And in fact, black is having a free hand right now to push c5, and black is ready for destruction of the center. It's a French pawn structure. The black bishop is already been exchanged off, and black is suddenly having a great game. Going back, what should white do in this position? Well, if you look at white's developmental advantage, if you look at the black king in the center, if you look at how many moves still black needs to make to consolidate his position, the best move for white was e takes d5. That's an incredibly beautiful move. It looks ridiculous at first sight. Why are you breaking the tension? Because white is having a breakthrough. Bishop takes d5. An amazingly beautiful piece sacrifice, because white's point is very simple. You ignored your development. Your king is stuck in the center. Now I open the e-file. There are so many threats like this. Knight c7 check, queen e3 check, and black is in trouble. Black, in fact, is in trouble. If he goes knight e7, comes a beautiful bishop c7. And after this comes queen e2. There's a mate in one threat. Black is in trouble, folks. Bishop d6, and black is collapsing on the e7 square, right? So after bishop takes d5 in this position, takes. If black goes knight f6, then comes queen e3 check. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful tactical shot, folks. And after this, you lose the queen on d8. I'm just showing you some sample lines just to tell you why this move was crashing for white. It's totally about the king in the center. It was just the right time for white to break the tension between those pawns, because white is getting a concrete tactical advantage. That was my point. That's why I show this position. And look at the difference, right? Look how bad e4, e5 is in this position, because white was having so much lead in development. Black king was stuck in the center, and white breaks the tension. White stabilizes black's pawn center, and white even enables black to achieve the beautiful French pawn break c5. Now I'm rotating the board for you folks. c5 is on the board. And imagine white goes knight e2 in this position. My question is this: should black break this tension by taking on d4, or should black maintain that tension? Again, please verbalize your idea to me. Folks, c takes d4 is great. Black should break the pawn tension right now. Why? What kind of positional advantage does black get in return? Well, first of all, I am breaking your beautiful pawn chain in the center. White was just getting ready to play c3 and maintain that pawn chain. Okay, so that's my first argument why taking is good. Second of all, I am opening up the c file for my rook. I'm even making my knight on d7 a happier piece, right? Just going back, I can explain this move to you using 3 arguments. The knight got happy, the rook got happy, and I destroyed white's pawn chain of d4 and e5, right? Look at the beauty of this, folks. I want you to take this as a lesson from this example. Please ask yourself those questions. Don't exchange pawns and pieces blindly. Use this as a simple guideline when you make decisions on the chessboard. I know living with tension is difficult because the permutations gets high, right? In all these calculations, you have to figure out, okay, what if they take my pawn first? What if I have to start taking at some point in my calculations, right? It gets permutationally maybe too much to calculate. And maybe that's one reason why beginners, amateurs, whenever there's tension, they want to break it instantly. But hopefully my lesson in this video made it clear to you folks. That's oftentimes a bad policy to exchange pawns without thinking, right? So always, always, always speak to your pieces, look at those positional factors, and justify your tension breaking or keeping in terms of piece activity, structure, and all the other positional factors I laid down to you in this video. If you like this video, I can make more of this. Maybe we can again turn this into a series. Tension, keeping the tension, should we break and should we keep? I can give you so many positions obviously about this concept. I personally discovered as a coach, this is one of the most difficult things for beginners, casual players to fix. And I'm happy to feed you with more such positions, folks. Please like and subscribe if you like this video, and there'll be more of such content in the future. And I will catch you on the very next episode, folks. Thank you so much.